Joining me now in Washington, the political editor for the Washington Examiner, Chris Stirewalt. Chris, good to have you with us. And in New York, columnist, New York Daily News, CNN contributor Errol Louis. Errol, good to have you here. Democratic strategist, CNN contributor Hank Sheinkopf. Hank, I mean, what's going on here? You know, some have said last week that the president didn't have a prayer with Obamacare, and beginning yesterday, turned to religious leaders for support and help. What's going on?
Smart move, get the base out or create a base for a particular movement. And the movement here is Obamacare or healthcare reform. Now, the problem is we still don't know enough of the details, and that's probably what's giving a lot of people a good deal of anxiety.
Errol?
I like the fact that he's finally trying to reframe it as a sort of ethical and moral question, at least in part, because he loses if it's a budget question. Some people might want to spend the money, some people might not want to spend the money. You frame it as a moral issue, it becomes, look, is this something we should do for our society? And that's what transformation is about. That's been his underlying argument all along. He's just finally making it up front.
Chris?
Well, it's a risky play. It could pay off, but the downside is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction on the political spectrum. And by going out and talking about this as a bringing religiosity into it, he's inflamed passions that were already pretty hot on the other side of the religious spectrum with conservative faith groups that are upset about the possibility, though not in the bill, of abortion being funded, euthanasia, and other things that they think are there. And as you guys have all pointed out, without the plan being there, the president can't sell it and can't push back against that effectively.
One of the things that's happening, and we've been doing this on this broadcast from almost the outset, pointing out that the number, 46, 47 million Americans being used by both President Obama, the Democratic leadership, and frankly, those opposing the legislation, just accepting the number, that the number is vastly overstated by any definition. Why has this continued? And the fact that this is going to, there will over the next few days and weeks, I'm sure, just as these things occur, the American people are going to, this is going to be reduced to the reality. And that reality is going to be no more than half that number. It's going to be a terrific talking point against the president. Why get involved in this hyperbole?
Lou, even if it's half the number, it is still it still presents a moral and ethical question for this country, how we can permit so many people to be without basic health care. That's what the president needs to get out front, and that's what will change the discussion.
No. That changes the discussion, what you just said, and it's one of the, if you will, rhetorical twists of this campaign for health care. That isn't people not receiving health care. That's people, quote unquote, uninsured. The analysis, let's just put this up for a moment and go through that number, because as you say, if it's a moral issue, we should at least you know, pursue the reality. Here are the numbers. 47 million, 46, 47 million. As we go through this, the Pacific Research Institute saying the number includes as many as 20 million illegal immigrants, 12 to 20 million. 14 million people who are eligible for benefits, that is, for programs like Medicaid, but who just simply haven't taken advantage of that coverage. Another 10 million who earn $75,000 a year or more. Make it 50,000, whatever the number you would like. Another 10 million. That leaves somewhere around 13 million. Uninsured, but again, in the case of illegal immigrants, they still have the ability to go into any emergency room in the country and be covered. It's not the same. There's also something very immoral about saying this country is not taking care of those people when I can't find a single instance in which a person would not be covered. Can you, Errol?
No. I mean, frankly, in New York City, for example, something like 400,000 people go into the public hospitals we have here, but that's a great expense. I personally have never thrown around the 47, 46 million number, because that's not the one that moves me.
Our president has.
Well, what I think people have to understand, though, is that they are paying, and that they are paying top dollar when people show up at those emergency rooms, and that it's just not a plausible way to do it.
But, Errol, that's a different argument than the one that the president is now pressing and which you just supported, which is a moral and ethical campaign. When the morality and the ethics of this are, we are providing health care to those who are in the country illegally. My God. Medicaid, Medicare, all of the programs in this country. This is becoming a frightening piece of hyperbole that distorts what is a very generous attitude on the part of the American people in providing health care for those who are needy. Medicare, Medicaid, my God.
Well, listen, as a talking point, the number that has always moved me the most has been the million or so people who are estimated to file personal bankruptcy every year, due primarily to medical expenses. And most of those people are insured.
Right, absolutely. Chris, your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the other challenges that the president faces as he makes this a moral issue is dealing with liberals in his party, conscientious liberals, who castigated the previous administration for using faith to sell policy, for using a religious message to try and sell policy points. I think there's a fair question that a lot of people of faith are going to ask, which is, I may be obligated as a person of faith to provide help to the needy, but I don't know that I'm obligated to move government policy in a different direction. So there is that line there, and there is the chance that for some of the more intellectually honest folks who oppose the Bush administration tactics in this vein are also going to feel obliged to break with the president.
This has nothing to do with Bush administration tactics, nor does it have to do with anything but a basic tenet of American politics from the beginning. There is a reason why our money says, "In God we trust." There's a reason why we say one nation under God. God is always in the discussion. Religion is always in the discussion. And we see ourselves as an ethical and moral force in the world. So it's no surprise the president would go back to where Americans really live, which is within those kinds of ethical boundaries.
Oh, no doubt. But I think it is fair to point out that this is something that the left took the right to task for a lot during the Bush years and before that. And excessive insertion of religiosity into the public sphere is something that a lot of liberals, I think, honestly were upset with. And I think that it poses some degree of cognitive dissonance here.
He said they were being honest, Hank.
No, yeah.
We're going to be right back with our panel. Stay with us. Well, the Scots release the killer, Hank, of almost 300 people. He received a hero's welcome in Tripoli today. And the U.S. government said it was a good day to remember the families of the flight. What's your reaction?
The families certainly will remember this day. They'll remember the day that the murder of their children and their relatives and whomever was close to them was released for humanitarian purposes. He was not as humane, and I think it is absolutely despicable that this person was not allowed to do what was required, which is to rot in jail.
Why didn't the Obama administration absolutely say no way?
This is called let's not make trouble. You know, they won't like it in Tripoli. Too bad.
You know, it's interesting, this administration, this president, he doesn't do moral outrage that well. You know, we know about him.
We were just talking about health care.
Well, you know.
He's doing moral outrage there.
Well, moral appeal, very different kind of a thing.
Okay.
I mean, the notion of no drama Obama, you know, he's always kind of cool, not always very emotional. This is a time where it really starts to show. I mean, the Honduran coup is another one where you wonder,
cool.
Why isn't our leader out there screaming? Why isn't he showing us that he's as angry as every American is right now?
Why did he permit the British to release a terrorist?
Well, I don't know that he has that. I mean, frankly, I'm not even sure most people understand the relationship between the Scottish government and the United Kingdom. You know, I mean,
insert British government, insert U.S. government, insert special relationship, insert the United States had sufficient and significant, obviously, influence over that decision. Do you not think?
Not sure.
All right.
Seriously,
what do you think, Chris?
I think they could have arrested him in Tripoli. I think that the United States could have issued. We could have put out a indictment on this cat before he ever landed in Tripoli. They probably could have bagged him right there at the airport, and would have certainly been some solace to the families. I think that just as was the case with the Iranian demonstrations and the violence in the streets there, outrage counts when you're the most important, most powerful person in the world. True. Being angry publicly sends a message to our allies and our enemies both that this stuff matters.
Perhaps the message was not for our allies. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it, Hank. Thank you. Thanks, Errol. Thank you very much, Chris. Coming up at the top of the hour, Campbell Brown. Campbell?